Preseason, I was all the way out on the Miami Dolphins. I actually predicted that they would be 5-12 this season because I was looking at basically a massive Tua meltdown, especially with them letting go of Fitzpatrick and actually just turning the keys over to Tua. Wasn't really I had no faith in it at all. I mean, they did. They rattled off a 9-8 season. So, I mean, it actually wasn't that bad. It was coming off of a 10-6 season, so they were expecting to see major growth out of Tua. They didn't really get that. I mean, they missed the playoffs. They started the season way too slow. So, I mean, that's their record and how that season went. They don't actually go hand in hand. They could have gotten a better grade had their season gradually progressed to 9-8, but they won 8 of their last 9 games to finish at 9-8 because they started so bad. So, I mean, because of that, I'm giving them a C on the season. Wasn't terrible, but you started so bad that you just could not actually pull yourself up by the bootstraps to make the playoffs.
Right.
And now the whole conference has gotten much harder. But, I mean, you had Jaylen Waddle as a major bright spot. I mean, he came in as a rookie, got 100 catches, over 1,000 yards. I mean, that's definitely a bright spot. One of their biggest needs would have been more weapons, but guess what happened today? Tyreek Hill. So now you've got Tyreek Hill. You brought in a backup and an insurance policy in Teddy Bridgewater. So they addressed 2 of the big needs. Outside of those, they could use a more impactful running back. I mean, they don't really have many draft picks, so they're going to have to see who they can, they're going to have to try to make some trades. I mean, unless they really just find someone who drops really deep in the draft and they really get lucky on the running back tip. But, I mean, I think they've actually made some pretty decent moves. They just kind of made a slight regression. And I really hate it for Brian Flores that they were able to bring in Tyreek Hill and Teddy Bridgewater, and Tua's actually looking better because he's not going to get any of the credit for the turnaround that he made in Miami before he was unjustly kicked out the door. And now you've got his predecessor who's going to get the credit.
Miami. They, I think the craziest thing to me about Miami was how they won. You know, they were 10-6 season before and literally don't make the playoffs in the AFC because of how crazy the AFC is. Not only do they upgrade, but the AFC upgrades as well. The conference, the division, everything. No preseason predictions, of course, like I mentioned, but I do give Miami a C+ for this year. And let's just be real, you know, outside of the 10-7 season last year, Miami wasn't a whole lot. You know, years before they had a couple of runs, and we've seen some of the talent that's come through Miami, but it hasn't really been a bright spot in the NFL, you know, kind of like the Jets, kind of like the Browns. You know, we have seen what Miami has been thus far. So to give them a C+, I definitely do feel like that's fair. Because again, you know, they started off so rough. You know, what the hell was going on with Tua? He was getting pulled again. He was getting hurt. We didn't truly understand what was happening in Miami. And then they're walking in New Orleans, you know, beating us by a ton when we feel like they had no reason to. You know, they're putting up points. They're really cleaning it up on the back half of the year. And I think if Miami would have had just a little more time in front of them, they would have been able to sneak into the playoffs and, you know, potentially win a game. So I do feel like C+ is fair for them because, again, nothing really changed. They reverted back to the Miami that they were before. Again, with the Browns, people want to freak out because Baker Mayfield played good for 6 to 10 weeks, and the Browns won double-digit games. But what did they fall right back down to? Case in point, got to be consistent in the NFL. It means not for long, and you know that we've said that. Now for Miami's biggest needs. I still think they're in search for a franchise quarterback. Again, I love Tua. I like Tua a lot in college. You know, Pimp and Ken that called in earlier actually had told me that Tua wasn't a big game quarterback. We saw against Clemson when he absolutely fell apart. We've seen in the NFL with certain parts where it just doesn't feel like he's got the mechanics or the general football knowledge down. And, you know, as much as I want to see Tua take that leap, he's just unfortunately not showing enough. This is probably going to be his last year in Miami before he's dealt or for the Dolphins go make a big trade. You know, and I would have liked to see a bigger quarterback move instead of a Tyreek Hill, no question about that. But off of a franchise quarterback, more onto the O-line as well. It's a bad offensive line in Miami. They need more of a presence in the trenches, especially with a guy like Tua, especially with some of the smaller players that are going to need to get open on the team. You need time. Again, this is my thing. Tua Jaylen, Tua Tyreek. You're going to need time for them to get open for those big shots, even if it's going to be quick. Do those quarterbacks have enough talent to get the ball to where it needs to be?